Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. It's time for an album review, Lou Reed and Metallica, Lulu. Bam! You see that? Alright, there's been a lot of hype around this release, a lot of negative hype around this collaboration, very unlikely collaboration, and people have pretty much been dismissing this thing from right out of the gate, before it was even out, really. And I'll give it to you, it was really easy to do that, given the first track to come off of this album, The View. It was put up on YouTube, the sound quality was terrible, the mishmash of Lou Reed and Metallica did not sound all that good. A lot of the abstract lyricism led to some pretty big internet jokes. I'm the table! But I doubt most of the people really hating on this album have given all 80 of its minutes a hard, honest listen. But to be honest, on some level, I can't help but feel like this album is a really, really great troll. I mean, it has to be, on some level. It's just too perfect of a storm. Trolling people, tricking people, angering people on the internet is a real art. You can't be too obvious, or else you're not going to tick off anybody. And if Metallica was going to partake in a collaboration that would troll people, it would have to be a rock figure. It would have to be a rock figure. They couldn't collaborate with like Gucci Mane or like Bjork or something like that. People would cry foul. And Lou Reed is one of the oddest and oldest living figures in rock we have today. And Lou Reed is one of the oddest and oldest figures in rock music we have today who has some kind of mainstream appeal. But what band out there has a fan base big enough, offendable enough for him to kind of just come in and prey on a little bit with some weird-ass poetry? Metallica. And the beauty is that on the reverse side, Metallica is totally a band that would piss off Lou Reed fans, because most Lou Reed fans, they're art rock fans. They're above listening to a group like Metallica. They turn their nose up at that kind of stuff. It's pedestrian. Plus, at this point in their careers, I really feel like Lou Reed and Metallica don't have anything to lose, really. It's been years since a Lou Reed project has gotten this much buzz. This much. And Metallica, at this point, I mean, everybody's pretty much come to the consensus that every new record of theirs isn't as good as their old stuff. For a lot of people, the only redeeming thing about their last album was that it was better than Saint Anger. So people are going to talk shit about Metallica and Lou Reed whether or not Metallica and Lou Reed actually collaborate. Plus, it's not like Lou Reed's discography isn't filled with unexpected surprises. Berlin with that rock opera feel that came right after Transformer. The Raven with this Edgar Allan Poe thing going on, and Metal Machine music. Come on. So yeah, on a level, I do feel like this collaboration happened because it would piss people off. But I also think Lou Reed and Metallica are in a position where they don't need to care if they piss anybody off. Metallica's best albums are still going to be really great. Lou Reed's best albums and his work with the Velvet Underground are still going to be amazing. And as I listen to this album more and more, not caring is the impression that I get more. These guys don't care what the reception of this album is. They're just doing what they want to do. And that to me is, more admirable than some group of guys getting together and then copying some indie blogosphere musical trend to get some kind of minor internet buzz off of it. So what's the concept here? What's the style? What do Lou Reed and Metallica do together on this LP? Not that it matters to many of you, who have already decided to hate this thing regardless, but I think this album has a really great concept, but a kind of weak execution. All the tracks on here are pretty long, winding, improvised. They function on a repetitive groove, and they feature all of this out there poetry, storytelling, and lyricism kind of iced on top. Some of the tracks on here go over 10 minutes, and the last track hits almost 20. And on some level, I mean, it would make sense that I would appreciate something like that. I love Laurie Anderson. I love the spoken word pieces of Tom Waits, of Martina Roberts, LCD Sound System when they do spoken word in their tracks. And one of my favorite Velvet Underground songs is Sister Ray, a 17-minute long track on their album White Light, White Heat, which is this noisy, freewheeling rock song with this great organ in it. And the story on that track is about transvestites and cops and an orgy and drugs, and it's really violent. It's pretty sick. If that kind of stuff is not your style, you'd rather listen to a pop song or something, then you aren't going to like this album no matter who produces it. Screw the whole Lou Reed and Metallica thing. Now, Lou, to me, for the most part, still has a lot of what makes him such an interesting artist. His words are really thought-provoking, his voice is really emotive, his imagery disturbing. I always get something out of what he says, even though I don't think age has done any favors to his vocal cords. If this album is proof of anything, it's that. But the lyrics on this album, stories about love and sex and the human anatomy and gore and power, it's not like Lou hasn't written words about this stuff before. I don't see how your average Lou Reed fan can't appreciate on some level at least what he's saying. I love the really depressing ideas he throws out there on Little Dog in regards to sex and women and just growing old, I think, and just kind of being washed up sexually as you kind of enter old age and become more frail or something like that. And I love the track Dragon on the second half of this LP, where he basically tells this story about being subjected, being a slave, servitude, just worshiping the people who hate you because they're richer than you and greater than you and bigger than you and stronger than you and more famous and popular than you. And the lyrics on that track actually are the other side of the coin on the song The View. That song actually makes The View make sense. So all of a sudden when I listened to that track, I felt like I kind of opened up this door. Everything all of a sudden just felt a little less ridiculous. Overall, I don't really see any reason for the lyrics and the poems in these songs to be laughed at, to be all that silly. I don't see any of the lyrics on these songs to be any more silly than a song like Suicide's Frankie Teardrops, and people who are music nerds pull pud over that song all the time. Let's hear it for Frankie! Now, as far as the Metallica element of this album goes, I feel like Metallica does still have a lot going for them musically, stylistically. I mean, they wrote and improvised some pretty good riffs on this album. There is stuff on here that is more pummeling and more badass than anything they've written in years. And the riff on the song Cheat on Me feels like something they would have put out in 1991. The guitars and drums on the track Mistress Dead are absolutely blood pumping. And the droning guitars and the strings and the keyboards on Cheat on Me create a pretty heavy and dark atmosphere. And I really love the strings on the final track, Junior Dad. But of course, there are negatives to this album for me. I don't think it's the greatest thing in the world. I don't think it's perfect. One of the things that bug me about this LP, as much as I do like what's trying to happen here, a lot of it just kind of feels underdeveloped. Like I'm listening to the first takes of a lot of these tracks, and I'm sure that's intentional. And I think that kind of makes the end result a little messy, and not in a rewarding kind of way. It just doesn't feel all that well thought out, not all that fine-tuned, and I'm talking about stuff like when Lou Reed should be louder, when he should be angrier, when Metallica should be getting heavier, when they should be playing softer. A lot of the details of a lot of these songs don't feel completely worked out. It feels like that Lou Reed and Metallica, for the most part, are just kind of doing their thing, have some kind of rough blueprint in here that is agreed upon, and they just kind of let the chips fall where they may. I like that approach, but none of the songs on here end up feeling as overwhelming or insane as a track like Sister Ray does. I like that song not just for its lyrics and for its groove and its song and its instrumentation, but for its chaos. And that's what I think could have been achieved with this album a little bit more. Some chaos. Even at their most improvised on this album, Metallica doesn't really vary too far from their usual ideas and sounds and grooves. If Lou Reed was not on this LP, this album would just sound like one elongated Metallica instrumental with some strings painting a few tracks here and there. Because no matter how much respect I have for Lou Reed or Metallica, the fact of the matter is that I am listening to an old man scream over thrashy guitar riffs that are generically distorted and compressed. Lou Reed is more aggressive than he usually is. Metallica is a little more improvisational than they usually are. They definitely pushed each other in different directions for Lulu, but I still feel like they could have gone farther to create a more cohesive style, I guess. I think both Lou Reed and Metallica are somehow under the assumption that their respective styles somehow just click together as is. You know, Metallica could have altered a little bit. They could have gotten dirtier, more experimental. They could have gotten noisier or something like that, or softer. This kind of got me thinking of maybe how awesome it would be to listen to Lou Reed just say all this weird stuff over like Electric Wizard sounding riffs. But instead on here you're just getting this really plain ass guitar tone that you'd hear if you went into like a guitar center. You hear it blaring out of amplifiers in every direction whenever some kid grabs the most expensive guitar he can find and pulls it off the wall and then starts jamming out the Enter Sandman riff on it. It's not really that great of a guitar sound to me. The quieter moments and the more string heavy moments on this LP are a little more palatable, honestly. Feel like what could have just been on any Lou Reed album. But those spots are not what makes this album stand out. Stylistically, I feel like the combination of Lou Reed and Metallica is just about as vulgar as many of the lyrics that Lou Reed puts on this album. And that's why I have to congratulate Lou Reed and Metallica. They've actually done something that's pretty offensive, vulgar to people's musical ideas, musical expectations. There was a time when earlier this year I watched the chaos unfold on the internet as a rapper named Little B named his album I'm Gay, and the hip-hop community got all angry and worked up. I thought to myself, the hip-hop community should be ashamed for being so easily offended in 2011. But now I'm here seeing people freak out, get angry over this album. And rock fans, I gotta say, rock and metal fans, not any better. Before I listened to this album, I saw this long-winded interview with Lou Reed and Metallica, kind of this, this talk piece where they're explaining how invigorating this album was for them, the creative process. And before listening to this album, if you asked me about it, I think I probably would have called them liars. Yeah. But now that I've heard this thing, and really heard it, and who knows, maybe it'll grow on me in the future, I think Lou Reed and Metallica have something worth bragging about a little bit. Because I think what these guys have done here is pretty unique, for lack of a better word. If I had to label Lulu stylistically, it would probably be spoken word avant-art thrash metal core. And yeah, this album is odd. It's kind of funny. It's kind of strange. It's borderline insane. It's taxing. It's a little mismatched. It's long-winded. It's unforgiving. I just don't see how all of those characteristics necessarily add up to a really terrible album. To me, they've added up into an okay album. Kind of feeling a light to decent 6 on this. Like I said, I really love the concept of this album. I just think it could have used some hammering out. Sorry for a lot of you who are angry because I took it seriously, but a lot like Lou Reed and Metallica, I don't care. If I let popular opinion decide whether or not I liked something, then there wouldn't be any point in making a review. Now would there? So we ask Cal Chuchesto what he thinks of the album.
I think Lulu's cute. I'd ask her on a date. And, where are you gonna shave over here?
And the review is over. What do you think of this thing? Do you love it?
Do you hate it?
Are you neutral on it? Why? And what does you be thinking I should be reviewing next? Anthony Fantano, Lou Reed, Metallica, Lulu, forever.